Our Around the World segment tonight, President Obama may be gone, but he did not miss one final opportunity to stick it to Israel during his last day in office. Just hours before Donald Trump took the oath of office, Secretary of State John Kerry informed Republican officials that the Obama administration would send $221 million to the Palestinians, despite the strong congressional opposition to that. Joining me now, former IDF soldier and former NYPD officer, Micha Danzig. Micha, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
Micha, I think we talked about this last week, perhaps the week before, right before President Obama left office. We said that there was rumors or reports that he had one final thing he wanted to do to throw the Israelis under the bus. $221 million to the Palestinians. That seems to be it.
Well, it's certainly not as egregious or as dangerous as we were expecting or concerned. I mean, he could have done something in the UN, which would have been much worse. But, obviously this is, it flies in the face of how the executive is supposed to act in these situations. The executive is supposed to give respect and deference to Congress. I mean, here you had the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and you had, the Appropriations Committee, congressional representatives from the Appropriations Committee that put a hold on these funds, specifically because the Palestinian Authority had breached the Oslo Accords, and they had said that there were conditions that had to be met by the Palestinian Authority before these funds were going to be released. And President Obama and John Kerry, flying in the face of those congressional holds, and in terms of how the executive is supposed to give deference to the Congress when it comes to spending this money, did it anyhow.
Right, and to me, I mean, I just don't trust the Palestinian Authority here. I mean, they fund Hamas, they fund propaganda that fuels violence and hatred towards Israel. In the practical sense, this is our money, this $221 million. It's not the government's money. Anything that says government money on it, it's our money. We earned that. It's our tax money. So what is it exactly going to be paying for?
And that's exactly right. I mean, we have to think about who this money is going to. Mahmoud Abbas is conservatively worth $500 million. He is in the 11th year of a 4-year term as the, quote, president of the Palestinian Authority. Khaled Mashal, who is the head of Hamas, is worth conservatively $2.6 billion. They didn't get this money from inventing anything, producing anything, or creating anything other than hate and terrorism. So they're just stealing that money from the aid money that the United States and Europe gives them. That's how they got so rich. So it's not a lot to ask to say that prove that you're not corrupt anymore, prove that you're actually going to spend this money on what it's meant to be spent on, and by the way, don't spend money anymore on funding terrorists and terrorism.
Right, and that was what I was going to lead into next, because one of the ways that this money was supposed to be spent, one of the descriptions on what this was going to be spent on was that it was going to be humanitarian aid. This was going to reach the people, and I do want to separate, as always, the people of Palestine from Hamas, from the Palestinian Authority. I mean, there are people in Palestine who are oppressed here, but there's no guarantee that humanitarian aid reaches the people here. And the Palestinian Authority uses their people as human shields. They're not above stealing humanitarian aid.
Certainly, I agree that there are Palestinians who are suffering. They're suffering because they're under the hands of Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, two corrupt dictatorships. One is a corrupt theocracy that's no different from ISIS, and the other is a corrupt Arab government that's similar to the corrupt Arab governments that have prospered under, under the likes of Saddam Hussein and Hosni Mubarak, that are corrupt kleptocracies and that is exactly what the Palestinian Authority is. So why should we be giving money to Mahmoud Abbas or to Khaled Mashal and their minions? We have no confidence that money is going to go to its intended purpose. And by the way, just because even if the money went to its intended purpose, if you give money to somebody to spend on X, that allows them to spend it on Y. If you knew of somebody who was a drug user and then you were paying their rent, don't you think that by paying their rent you're enabling them to buy money with drugs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes no logical sense to me. Another reason that this money, another purpose for this money, the intended purpose, to use your term here, was to support political reforms. And $221 million, I mean, I'm not going to scoff at that number. That's an enormous amount of money. But when you're talking about pitting $221 million across from, like you said, billions and billions of dollars at the hands of the Palestinian Authority and the head of Hamas here, I don't understand how that would help at all. It would be like a drop in the bucket fighting against $221 million versus billions of dollars.
Exactly. And they've shown no credible willingness to engage in real political reforms. Again, Mahmoud Abbas is in the 11th year of his 4-year term. He ran for office once. It's like every election that has ever occurred, sadly, in the Arab world. You have one election, one time, the winning party or the winning person never runs again in a real election. That's what happened to Hamas in 2006 when they won the election in Gaza. They've never run since. They've had no credible elections in either Gaza or under the Palestinian Authority since their first elections. And we're going to give them money towards political reform. Why would we have any confidence that that would happen?
Right. Thank goodness for a couple of congressmen who put a stop to this. Hopefully that stop is permanent. But Micha, I mean, you can have the final word here, but to me it's very telling. This last move by President Obama towards Israel just encapsulates his entire attitude towards the state of Israel from these past 8 years.
I can't read his mind, but certainly his actions speak louder than anything else. And his actions when it comes to Israel with respect to the Iran deal, with respect to, canceling weapon shipments to Israel in the middle of the war in Gaza in 2014, with what happened at the UN recently on December 23rd, and now, of course, with this last, poke in the eye of Congress and in Israel by giving money to people who are spending it on terrorism and on supporting terrorists, that speaks louder than anything else.
Right. Amen to that. Couldn't have said it better. And on that note, Micha, we're out of time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.